Goldie Roger and Kozuki Odin debuted on both global and Japan One Piece Treasure Cruise on the 27th of December 2020. The introduction of Super Sugo Fest exclusives begin with a worldwide release of one of the most hype batches of all time. Both new characters were extremely powerful and maintained being the best units in the game for an entire year after the fact. The characters included in this batch include Dark King Rayleigh, Unexpected Ambush, Crocus, Waiting at the Cape to Fulfill a Promise, Cat Viper, Drought-Repelling King of the Night, Dogstorm, Drought-Repelling King of the Day, and one of the Super Sugo Fest exclusive characters of the batch introduced a powerful set of abilities that aimed to be the best Rainbow Captain in the game, being able to boost all characters no matter the class or type, with a powerful special that granted major damage increasing as well as being able to push damage through normal attacks only. Introducing Goldie Roger, Captain of the Roger Pirates. In this series, we'll be traveling back in time to experience some of the older Sugo Fest exclusive characters in their prime, aiming to show just what it was like to use these characters on their debut. I hope you enjoy the video, and without further ado, let's enter the Legends of OPTC. So thank you very much for checking out yet another episode of the Legends of OPTC, and in this video we're going to be covering probably one of the most excited, massive character releases that the community has ever seen. Goldie Roger was a monumental release in One Piece Treasure Cruise, and people couldn't get enough. I think if you look back at some of the statistics in terms of the game's revenue, I believe this was the second highest revenue the game has ever achieved during a celebration. I think the number one was Legend Lucy release around the 3rd anniversary. This was number 2, right behind that. And I mean, Goldie Roger, what more could you ask for? It was the first iteration of Roger in One Piece Treasure Cruise, debuting alongside Kozuki Odin, and despite the fact that Odin has the lower ID, we're going to be covering Roger today because he was the mainline unit of the celebration, of course. Now, alongside this was actually a World Cruise event. I believe this was the first time that they did a celebration for both global and Japan at the same time, introducing this batch on both sides of the game at the same time. There was a campaign event at the same during this event period where you could clear a piece of content, and then you could earn points for it, and it's for both global and Japan. It was just a really exciting time. I also personally worked with Bandai to release a preview video for Goldie Roger as well, so it was a really fun time. So, you know, it's cool to reminisce about how Treasure Cruise used to be. But let's actually get into this. There's a lot of new characters to talk about, so let's go ahead and start things off with the rare recruits. Here we have Dark King Rayleigh, if the artwork would load. There it is. Dark King Rayleigh, Psy-Free Spirit Slasher. Special ability here would do 200,000 fixed to all enemies, reduces damage, threshold, and rainbow shield by 5 turns, and also give a color affinity boost. Not more you could really ask for, giving utility, color affinity boost, damage dealing special, makes psi slots beneficial to all characters. You know, it doesn't really do a whole lot, but what he does, it's pretty decent. He saw a little bit of play here and there. Not a bad unit at all. One thing that is a little strange is that the rare recruits that they released for this, you know, you had the Rayleigh that we just showed, the Crocus, Cat and Dog, they weren't like the young versions of the character when they were actually on Roger's crew. They're the old, like, current day versions of the characters, which a lot of people were not that excited about. Like, if this was like young Rayleigh, young Crocus, and then the younger forms of Dog and Cat, people would have been way more hyped, obviously, but even still, you're just looking at what the character does. The character's pretty decent. Next, move on to Crocus. Crocus is a really interesting unit here. This was like the first rare recruit Crocus in the game. Psy, Free Spirit, and Cerebral. He would reduce paralysis by 1 turn as a crewmate. That's just awesome to have. And then he would give a 90% damage reduction for 2 turns. He also gives you a bit of recovery that can overheal. He removes blindness and poison completely, and then removes burn and recovery down by 5 turns. So, like, it's an interesting special. Like, a lot of these gimmicks that he gets around, like, they're not specifically, like, things you're going to always encounter, but it's cool that he has the ability to do that. The other thing about this guy, and he's seen a lot more play as a support rather than a rare recruit. He attaches to Laboon, Rayleigh, and Roger, and if you use a special, it will give you 50% damage reduction, a 2500 heal, and remove 2 turns of burn. I have definitely used this character as a support more than once before. Actually pretty cool to have, so that's the main reason why he sees play. And I guess with the introduction of more characters that have percent damage reduction based attack boost, if you can apply 90% damage reduction, you could actually abuse that in some really interesting ways. Moving on, we have Cat Viper. Cat Viper here is a strength, striker, and free spirit. You can see a theme here, all of these characters being free spirit. And then with this character, he reduces Despair and Special Bind only by 4 turns. He changes left column slots into matching, and then delays all enemies for 1 turn, and a 0.8 chain addition. And he does remove Special Bind by 4 turns, like, it makes quick slots beneficial to strength. I don't really get why they kind of shafted this character. Only 4 turn removal really kind of hurts. If this was 5 turns, this character would have seen a ton more play. And he only changes half of your slots into matching, but the reason why that is because you have the Dogstorm character, and this character does a very similar type of thing, reduces paralysis and attack down by 4 turns, right column slots into matching, and you get a 2 times conditional boost against delayed enemies. So they do work well together, but the utility only being 4 turns really hurt these units, and Dog and Cat basically saw hardly any play on release. Obviously they were good for the events at the time, but unfortunately they kind of shafted this character overall, with both Dog and Cat. And then Crocus, while his utility is good, it's just its effects you're not really going to come up against that often. The paralysis removal in his crewmate ability was definitely really nice though. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of the video. So we're going to talk about Kozuki Odin in next week's video. We are probably going to use him in the video with Roger because the combination between the two is so good. But let's have a look at what Roger does. So why was this character on release considered to be the best in the game? I believe Roger, when he came out during the New Year's celebration, was the best unit in the game until the next New Year's celebration, which is just wild, right? So, Goldie Roger, captain of the Roger Pirates, Psy, Free Spirit, Slasher, captain ability here, nullifies remove beneficial effects and accumulated values effects once per adventure. So this effect, I'm not 100% sure if we're going to abuse it in this video. We probably will find a way to do that. But what this means is that whenever the enemy has an effect that like removes your beneficial effects or your accumulated values, once per quest, he can just negate that from happening. Only Roger and Odin can do that. Like the quick Super Sugo Fest exclusive has the ability to do that as well. There aren't many characters that have this. And while it's not amazing, there are some key circumstances where this could be very, very good. So he has that ability. He would also be a rainbow attack boost of 4.5 times, 1.3 times HP, and then removing Despair duration completely. So not a 10-turn removal, a complete removal. And if you use his special ability, Divine Departure, then this Roger's captain ability becomes a 5 times attack boost instead to all characters for the next 3 turns. So a very good captain ability here, like Despair removal, great attack boost to all characters, and at this time period, like 5 times attack was about the cap that you were reaching. There wasn't really many circumstances you could get above that. So 5x, Rainbow during the turns his special is active is really strong. And then as for his special ability, doing 1 million fixed damage, ignoring normal attacks only, so it just goes through everything to all enemies. He also boosts the attack of all characters by 2 to 3 times for 1 turn based on the amount of damage that you've dealt before you've activated this special ability. And if this character is your captain and your captain spot, if it's in the top row, then all boosts are extended by 1 turn. So this effect is going to be really cool, which we're going to use today. And then in terms of getting the 2x to 3x attack boost, like whenever you use it, you're just guaranteed to get the 2x attack boost, but it's based on the amount of damage that Roger himself does with his normal attacks. So meaning that once Roger himself does 3 million damage, I believe it's only himself. Either way, it's not very hard to achieve. So 3 million damage, once you've done 3 million damage, the attack boost now just straight up becomes a 3x, which is, it's not that hard to achieve. You're going to get that most of the time. So being able to just get a 3 times attack boost to all units at this point in time of the game's release, like, this was uncanny. This is just so freaking strong. And then we have his super type. His super type does require one of the following characters on the crew, which is essentially any of the characters that we've talked about in this video, but it does also include a Whitebeard or an Ace, if you have one of those on the crew, or a Shanks and Buggy. There was a free-to-play Shanks and Buggy that came out during this time period. There was a young Newgate as a free-to-play unit during this event as well, and this character had great synergy with the Ace versus Akainu character as well, just a really good unit. And then the effect itself would change all slots, including block slots, into matching, and lock slots for 1 turn, and then Psy characters become Super Psy. So even though the effect is essentially for all characters, he does still only give the super typing just to the Psy units, which is not that big of a problem. This character is just the kind of like the apex of Treasure Cruise, you know, rainbow effects, rainbow buffs. He just does everything. He was the best unit in the game by so far. Like, nothing really came close to him when he came out. He was just so far ahead of everything else. He was very good in Pyre Rumble as well, just really good for the generic like Psy team or Free Spirit team, just really good for that. So that is the breakdown of Gold D. Roger. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into some content and utilize this character. It's been a long time since I've actually used Gold D. Roger, so this should be a little bit of fun going back and using him for the first time in a long time. So let's go ahead and jump over to the game. So we are now in game with Gold D. Roger. Here we have the man. I did obviously have to go ahead and devolve my current one. My one here is at level 120. I did have a dupe Odin that I could actually go ahead and use as a sub, and we'll be covering more of him in next week's video as a captain, so look forward to that. Now, I do have Sabo and Koala on the crew, and look, the fact that they are the Super Evolved version doesn't really matter. We're only using them basically for their switch effect just to get a color affinity boost, and we're going to use their special to get an attack boost later on. So, I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in and show off what Gold D. Roger is all about. I still remember when he came out, dude. People were just going crazy. There were a bunch of new people into the game for the first time as well. And people were just excited, man, because Gold D. Roger, this is like ever since Treasure Cruise came out, like people wanted to see Gold D. Roger in the game. And of course, like, it's kind of hard to release a character in a game where, you know, you haven't even seen what the character is actually capable of doing in the lore of the franchise. So yeah, it was a little hard to do it, but of course with the release of you know, Wano Kuni, and they had the Odin flashback, of course, it kind of opened the doors for them to eventually release Roger as a dedicated character in the game. One thing to also notice, I don't know if I actually mentioned this in the initial breakdown, but Roger and Odin were the first Super Sugo Fest exclusive characters in One Piece Treasure Cruise. That was a pretty big deal at the time, because it was pretty contentious, because you had a lot of people in the community that were, you know, kind of excited at the fact that we had like a new tier of character that introduced like such a crazy new power level. But at the same time, up until this point, it wasn't the same as what current Treasure Cruise was. You know, every character was available on essentially every banner. It's just that, you know, certain Sugo Fests had other characters that were rate boosted, and you had a much higher chance to pull, you know, a certain unit on a banner. They didn't really used to have the thing where only 20 available characters were pullable, and that was kind of it. Also, you know, 15% chance to get a legend on a Super Sugo banner was a pretty big deal at the time as well. It was just a lot different. So there was a lot of changes going on in terms of the structure of the whole release schedule of these events. So it was a pretty big deal. So the fact that things were the way that they were is kind of interesting. Just looking back at it now. I do want the chopper to be ready. And the fact that he's not ready is kind of scaring me. And that poison hopefully is not too bad. The fact that we're already inflicted with the poison and the actually, well, Chopper's going to remove the poison anyway, so that's really not a big deal. Let's just go ahead and move on now. I believe we can get rid of the blindness as well. That shouldn't be a problem. Okay, stage 3. Here we have the Nami stage. There are some really annoying characters in the back, but that's not really going to be an issue either, luckily for us. So, you can see that this is why we wanted to go ahead and make sure that all of our cooldowns were actually ready to go, because we're inflicted with 5 turns of paralysis, which is pretty annoying. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of damage increase here with the Sabo Koala switch effect, which gives a 1.5 times color affinity boost to Free Spirit and Cerebral. The whole team is Free Spirit or Cerebral, which is great. We'll go ahead and use Chopper to remove the paralysis. Christmas Chopper, man. Christmas Chopper is just the GOAT. This man is just so good. Just removing a bunch of different debuffs. Even in 2025, like today's standard of One Piece Treasure Cruise, Legend Chopper is still a very useful Sugo Fest exclusive to own. And then finally, let's go ahead and activate the special ability of Gold D. Roger. So the main reason why we're doing this here, you know, we're going to have another Roger, so we have that, but we also have a Sabo Koala special to give us another attack boost later on. But the main reason why we want to use this particular effect right now, not only just because the attack boost is really good, and the special animation is so cool too. I remember I was looking back at some of my older videos for Roger, and I was mentioning the fact that, like, at the time, this was one of the coolest special animations we had. It was just so cool to see this, because the sheer power level of this character was like nothing we'd ever seen in One Piece during the anime and the manga at that point. So it was cool to see such a high level character here. So we got the attack boost from Roger. This is only this is a 2.5 times attack boost. So let's go ahead and attack with Roger. Add a bit more damage to his kit there. And now we can move on to stage 4. So here we have Monkey D. Monkey D. Luffy. Now you notice that we did not use one of the super types of Roger. We're going to be using that right here next. So let's see what Luffy does again. He goes ahead and removes their beneficial effects, but luckily for us, we get the cut-in with Roger. And that's going to go ahead and negate that effect of removing our beneficial effects, meaning the Roger will still be able to maintain that potential 3 times attack boost with his special. The other reason why that also activated was because we had the end of turn healing, and it prevented the enemy from removing that. And you see here that we have these slots counted as badly matching for our crew, which is obviously really, really bad. So first thing is first, let's go ahead and use the special ability here of Kuzan. So Kuzan, this guy was really good when he came out, because this was one of those key rare recruits that removed defense up, rainbow shield, damage threshold, all by 5 turns. He did that on top of also healing and giving us a color affinity boost. I think you needed to have a certain color captain, I think a strength or an int captain to get the color affinity boost. It doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and use the super type here of Gold D Roger. Now, the really cool thing about this, it just works for everyone. Full board of matching slots, you get them locked as well, so you can keep them for multiple turns, but this is where the synergy between Roger and Odin works so well. So let's go ahead and use the special ability of Odin. So Odin had a really interesting special ability, the fact that, you know, we'll cover it more next week, but he changes matching slots into strength slots, and then also makes it so for the next, like, couple of turns, he changes any strength slot you get into a Wano slot. So essentially, if you have matching slots when you launch Odin's special, he changes them into Wano slots. So this is a really powerful effect to use with Roger, because Roger's super type, as we just seen, changes all of our slots into matching. So even though they counted as badly matching, they are still like the same type slot. So Psi character has a Psi slot, Strength character has a Strength slot, and then Odin's able to change them into Wano. This is again where they have the synergy really well with Roger and Odin, because we can then activate our Odin special and then the Roger special on top of that. And remember how Roger works. Roger mentions if he is in the captain position or the friend captain position, when you activate his special ability, he's going to go ahead and extend the duration of your orb boost by 1 turn. And Odin is a 2-turn orb booster. With the Roger special ability, it now becomes a 3-turn orb boost. So, like, during this time period, this combo of Roger and Odin was just so undefeated. There was just nothing better than what these characters were providing. So freaking strong. We do still have Sabo and Koala, but we're going to keep them for now. So now we can just attack, and we're good to go. Again, just like a lot of damage, no real issues there. And then we're going to move on to the boss stage. So I remember when this Colosseum first came out, this is one of the hardest Colosseums that we'd ever seen. It was just really, really annoying. And I guess, the frustrating part about this Colosseum was not only was it like ultra difficult when it first came out, the issue was that the actual quality of the character wasn't really that great. I did actually make a little bit of a mistake here. I did actually want it to be Sabo when we entered this stage, so he didn't get inflicted with the special bind. I think their switch ability, does that remove special bind? Okay, luckily for us, it's not going to be a problem. Obviously, if this was the original version of Sabo and Koala, we would want to enter this stage as Sabo so that we're not inflicted with the special bind. Luckily for us, the 6+ kind of saved us, so we didn't have to rerun it, okay? But with that, we're going to go ahead and use the super type again, because Brook does have a revive, so we want to keep these slots again for the next turn. So with this, we'll have the orb boost from Odin, still from the previous stage, 2.5. We're going to have the 1.5 times color affinity boost. And the fact that we don't have Koala here now, because we ideally want Koala here, but unfortunately we don't. I don't think it's going to be a problem, so I think we should be okay just hitting our perfects, ending on our int characters, and it should be okay. One thing to note is that Odin does have the Barrier Pierce potential ability, which can kind of help out a little bit, giving us a bit of additional damage. So without further ado, let's go ahead and try and do as much damage as we can. Alright, sweet. So Brook is down. He's going to go ahead and perform his revive. The orb boost and the color affinity are going to expire, but it's not going to be a big issue. I mean, technically we could just use the host special to give us another color affinity boost, but it's not going to be a problem. So we can go ahead and switch. We can go ahead and use the special ability of Sabo and Koala. And again, this is where Roger's going to come in so clutch, because Brook has an interrupt where if you activate an attack boost or an orb boost, he does some pretty nasty stuff. Luckily, we have Roger's captain ability, which can prevent our buffs from being cleared. So that's, again, another reason why Roger is so good. So you see he's going to react here. He's going to perform his little interrupt. We have Roger that says, no siree, get out of here, buddy boo. And now we can go ahead and clear. So we do have the color affinity, we have the attack boost. This should be more than enough damage to get the knockout against Brook. Let's do it. And there it is. And there it is. Goldie Roger, Kozuki Odin coming in clutch. So yeah, really, really fun to go ahead and use these characters again. And yeah, as I said, these characters on release were just so far ahead of like anything else that it was absurd, the fact that we got characters as powerful as this when we did. So anyways, guys, that is pretty much going to wrap it up for me for this one. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video today. As mentioned, we're going to be covering Kozuki Odin in next week's video, but of course, we're going to take our time and give, you know, Roger the love he deserves in this video, because Roger is just the homie. Was one of the best character releases in Treasure Cruise history, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video today. And if you did enjoy it, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.